In a hot minute on Art Rocks, a Louisiana high school drama department that always seems to be flying high. Forging fire pits from cold steel, a mother-daughter team of artisans using traditional materials to remind us where we came from, and the largest collection of Newcomb pottery is closer than you think. That's all about to happen on Art Rocks.
Art Rocks is made possible by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting and by viewers like you.
Hello, I'm James Fox-Smith, your faithful Country Roads correspondent, thanking you for joining us for Art Rocks. We start today in Zachary, Louisiana, a town on the outskirts of Baton Rouge. Zachary has a population of less than 18,000, but it boasts a high school drama program and facilities that can hold their own alongside any other public high school in the country. We spoke with students and teachers about how Zachary High manages to pull off spectacular productions of classics like A Few Good Men, To Kill a Mockingbird, The Wizard of Oz, and Guys and Dolls.
First off, we have an amazing community that believed in us and built us this beautiful facility. And we have great kids, and we have a faculty that works hard, and it's fun. It's just, when you get a facility like this, it's just really fun to work in, just to see what you can do and what you can make happen. We have a fly system. I think we're one of a handful of high schools in Louisiana that have a full fly system. So we're able to not only fly scenery in and out, but we're able to do shows like Mary Poppins and fly Mary Poppins in and out. We opened the theater with The Wizard of Oz and flew Glinda in, and that was magical. In any given year, we can do between 3 and 5 productions. So we have done A Few Good Men. We've done To Kill a Mockingbird. A Raisin in the Sun was a particular favorite of mine.
There's a lot that goes into putting on a very large production like Guys and Dolls. It certainly does take a longer, amount of time to put on a musical with a large scale of students that involve music, dialogue, singing, and dancing.
Playing Nathan Detroit in Guys and Dolls was definitely a very fun role for me. I was able to showcase my voice, but not only my voice, my acting skills, which I love to be able to show off.
I tried all the regular places, the back of the cigar store, funeral parlor.
Nathan, you once said there might be a chance at the Biltmore Garage.
I was over to the Biltmore Garage. I spoke to Joy Biltmore himself.
I have, I would say probably between 200 to 300 lines, along with multiple songs to remember, multiple harmonies to do, especially like Luck Be a Lady was a very challenging song with the guys.
Luck be a lady, luck be a lady. Luck be a lady tonight. Luck be a lady tonight. Luck be a lady tonight.
It was definitely a struggle to try to hold harmonies with, I think we had 8 guys on stage trying to hold 4-part harmonies, which was definitely very difficult. We would been spending at least till 5 o'clock every day, starting from rehearsals and going to as late as 8 o'clock some nights. Finding a way to balance that was definitely a challenge. In between scenes that I was not in, I would have to find time to study or do my homework or do anything I needed to do for my classes.
I've been dancing for 9 years at my own studio outside of school, and that's where I learned my tap and jazz and all the stuff that we used in the show. And so combining that with my theater experience, it's really helped me get through like the dance numbers and the rehearsals. It's been good for me. The person who hasn't really had as much dance experience, they'd be watching other people trying to catch on, and it would take a little bit longer, but it'd be worth it in the end, just because when you have a big number, it's everybody dancing.
As stage manager, my job is to get every single item that belongs on stage in its place. We previously mark it out, so we have tape everywhere, and so we bring everything on, and I have to delegate who brings what on, and that needs to happen in a very timely fashion. And then you add actors to the mix, and then you have to be able to control what they do. We have headsets on at all times, and I have somebody in each position, stage right, stage left, in the booth, on fly.
We've got state-of-the-art lighting equipment and sound equipment, and we have great people that come in and work with us. So we have Robert Finch as our lighting designer, and he comes in from a professional background working on events like the Super Bowl or professional concerts. He was worked on the Fleetwood Mac concert. So he comes in and brings all of that experience and his background, and he teaches our kids using great equipment. The kids are excited, that excites them, and they buy into that. Our school board allows us to bring in outside artists. When I make that phone call, I said, you can't just come in and do it for us. You have to teach kids. So you have to, when you come in, just know that you're going to be teaching as you go. Everybody passes on their knowledge, and it's just problem solving. Theater is just a fabulous vehicle for high school, for helping kids find their strengths, working on their weaknesses. Our seamstress for Guys and Dolls, Cheryl Napier, has been sewing costumes for the program, oh gosh, for about 14 years. We've worked together, and we just have a really good working relationship. We have an amazing choreographer in Jerice Grantham. She knows how to fill that stage. She knows how to show off a talented dancer. She knows how to make a kid that's never danced before feel good.
My way into teaching theater to the students is less focused on product and more focused on the individual student. I want them to learn things at this age about themselves. They gain skills in poise and presence and in eye contact. They learn facial expression, and they learn body movement and gesture, and all of those things. It transforms them, it changes them. And it's so fun to watch that through rehearsal, how they gain control of their bodies and learn to become this character that they create.
What to do? What to do? I promised to save Wilbur's life, and I'm determined to keep that promise. But how?
It really helped me come out of my shell, because I used to be very shy and reserved, and now I'm able to just speak without hesitating.
Weekend's coming, so here in brief are our tips for some events, festivals, exhibits and performances coming soon to a town near you. To learn more about these and other events in Louisiana, keep your eyes peeled for a copy of Country Roads magazine. And while we're at it, LPB's Art Rocks website features an archive of previous episodes, so to see any episode again, just log on to lpb.org. West we go to Nevada, which is where you'll find Jim Moffitt, a metal worker who's forged a new passion for elaborate and fanciful custom creations. This extraordinarily talented welder has found fame for sculpting metal orbs into the most unique fire pits you have ever seen. Each 360-degree creation is different from the last, so bring your marshmallows and gather round.
My name is Jim Moffitt, founder and creator behind Twisted Steel. I make fire pits out of Navy mine casings, old propane tanks, and just about anything I can find. I worked construction most of my life. I opened a welding shop in 2000 and mainly did fences and some fancy gates and whatnot. I started creating fire pits in, I believe, June of 2014. The first step of creating a fire pit is the chalk outline, which can take anywhere from a day to a week or more. Then the next step is to grab the plasma cutter and start cutting on it. I can cut one in probably 5 or 6 hours. Today I'm cutting a fire pit for a client that lives in Tahoe. Her and her husband are avid elk hunters, so we decided to go with 2 bull elk fighting, elk standing in the trees, and she also wanted bears, so I added a mama bear, a papa bear, and 3 baby bears to represent their family of 5. It's really rewarding to bring people's visions to life. A lot of my clients have no artistic skills at all. One was an accountant, and she just relied on me to bring her vision to life in a fire pit. When you create something that is basically their idea, there's no feeling like it. It's hard to pick a favorite. They're all just super fun. My dragon fire pit had flying dragons, burning up the forest, dragon on the ground with just stars in space, and burnt trees as well as living trees. It was just fun and came together really easy. Once you start the fire, and the fire in the background really makes things come to life. Cutting fire pits allows me to bring out my creative side that I didn't even know I really had until just a few years ago. That guy looks good, huh? I really wasn't sure about this when I started Twisted Steel and started doing this. And I was in my 50s when I did this, and in my youth I had no idea I would end up here. And it's just, it's really neat to find yourself and to find something you love, then just go with it.
What home can you ever call complete until it's got a stuffed chicken footstool? City Girl Farm in Kansas City, Missouri has cornered the market in these whimsical things. They're the brainchild of a mother-daughter duo using traditional materials to remind their customers of our shared rural origins. Pull up a chicken, prop up your feet, and take a look at these.
I'm really in the finishing process of this chicken, just going around and making all the final passes. And Mom is working on basting on her chicken and making sure everything's covered. Oh, and you got a head on? Great.
Yep, poultry parts, being, for lack of a better term, upholstered, inside a small storefront just west of the Country Club Plaza, by the mother-daughter team that's at the heart of the City Girl Farm.
Mom gets a lot of credit for being involved from birth on creatively. So yeah, I grew up on a farm in central Kansas in Lyons, and I was given the gift of chickens, I think sometime in middle school. And so I had a lot of happy childhood chicken experiences and loved collecting the eggs and just watching them around the farm, and I think they're so ridiculous and quirky and unique, each chicken, that they make me feel better about my own quirks and uniquenesses.
The story moves on to Sally's graduate studies at Kansas State, where she majored in interior architecture. Inspired by the French artist Francois Lalonde's sheep footstools, she introduced a product of her own.
Penny and Penny were the result of a semester of designing how to make a chicken, what's the essence of a chicken, what parts need to be there. And I was honestly just hoping that they would stand up.
They stood, and an idea was hatched. Teaming one newly minted college graduate with her mom's skills at the spinning wheel and her father's abilities to build. The first chickens were white and basic. They sold. So did the next batch, and the next, as have the increasingly not found in nature varieties which continue to emerge.
We create our own rules. We'll look at each other and we're like, there's nobody to ask. We have to solve this, and we may do it wrong, we may do it right, and we're just have taken that risk. One of the first shows we went to, there was somebody that looked in our booth and they said, "Are you taxidermists?" They looked at it, they knew it was a chicken, their minds told them. Then the second later they realized, oh, well, there's no chickens that big running around any farmyard. But it was the scale of it that she created that I think made it real, but yet they knew they weren't real, so it was a real play on, you know, what their mind and their eyes were telling them at the same time.
Our goal is always to create a chicken, but the way that we get to the end result is always changing based on the fiber, based on the feather making processes, and then what we pin on the chicken and how we decide to stitch it.
So far, the roughly 500 chickens that have gone out the door have at least one thing in common. They're sturdily constructed, with bronze legs and beaks and a solid wooden egg at the core. They are, after all, footstools. Expensive footstools that take weeks to create.
People will say, I wouldn't buy this and put my feet up on it. Or they ask us, do people use it that way? And we're like, we really have no idea. It's up to them, you know, but they are engineered as a footstool, and the price is, you know, reflects that. We did recognize kind of a couple years ago that these chickens were going to some pretty cool homes, and I was starting to get a little jealous. There's one we know of that has the view of the Pacific Ocean every single day, and I'm thinking that isn't quite fair.
While there may not be an ocean view here, Susan does get to see something that many parents would envy her for. Her daughter, nearly every day as they tackle this task for which there is no manual.
I don't know, somehow our differences and our strengths have made this work. As long as I don't comment about her hair or what she's wearing.
Okay.
We have a similar work ethic. I think that's really big. We will push and put in, you know, to the midnight hour without even questioning it. And that's hard to find people, pay people to put in that kind of, you know, effort.
Except perhaps for this group of chickeners. Among them, you'll find architects, nurses, students, and friends, even friends of friends. They come together nearly every week for conversation and camaraderie, some snacks, and no matter what their sewing skills may be, to play some small role in the unfolding tale of City Girl Farm.
They do get compensated for their stitches. We do our best to decide how much of a chicken they've stitched and then pay them accordingly.
So what I'm trying to do is, Sally is very good at directing and teaching, but then she allows you to have like flexibility and your own creative look on things, and that's, I think, how you can get so much. And then if you're nervous, she's like, no, you're doing such a good job. And she's just very positive, which I think is great. You get her today.
It's tempting to say that the chicks are in charge, and apparently I just did, but there are guys involved at the farm too, including Dave in the back room. He's the designated felter, transforming raw fibers like wool into fabric using the powers of water and heat in a process that falls somewhere between science and magic.
Look at that.
Then there's John, recently added to the CGF team to help Sally keep a more vigilant eye on those pesky numbers.
Definitely learning more this year, particularly about the business end of things, which was not my forte, never has been, but I'm learning a lot. So it's a beautiful mix of like production that needs to happen and just wanting to protect the culture of flexibility and spontaneity and creativity in the making.
We never get bored. I mean, it's like, you know, we'll look at each other and just kind of, really? You know, we get to do this?
We're having a lot of fun, and I'm really, really thankful for the idea and just the joy and delight that they seem to spread into the world.
Back home, here's another, or maybe we should say many, Louisiana treasures. You've probably seen the distinctive arts and crafts pottery designs developed by the women of New Orleans' Newcomb Memorial College around the turn of last century. If not, there's no better place to learn about this influential movement than the Newcomb Art Museum on the campus of Tulane University, where the largest collection of original pieces is housed.
We are inside the storage of the Newcomb Art Museum at Tulane University. These are some examples of the Newcomb pottery pieces that we have on our collection here. We have about 800 selections of Newcomb ceramics. We know that about 70,000 were made throughout the run of Newcomb, but we don't have a handle on where all of those pieces are. We are the largest collection of Newcomb pottery that's available for the public to view. And we offer public tours on the first Friday of every month of our collection and storage. Newcomb pottery was a commercial enterprise that was started by Newcomb College in 1894 by the Woodward brothers as a partnership with the newly formed Newcomb College. It was a social enterprise that provided employment to graduates of Newcomb College. So these were all women who were completing their education, and the pottery enterprise gave them a job to do once they graduated. They had men who threw the works on the potter's wheel, but the women were in charge of applying the decoration and doing the coloring. Key principles of Newcomb pottery would be that no two pieces would be alike. They all had to be handmade, and they all had to represent the local landscape. That made them very distinctly Southern. We see there's a lot of motifs here of moss on oak trees, very recognizable landscape for Louisiana and going down into the bayou and on the river. Newcomb pottery had several different designs throughout the different decades that they were in operation. These pieces were made from 1910 to 1940 approximately, when Newcomb was using the matte glaze style, which means they're not high gloss, they're not super shiny, they look sort of soft and translucent. We see there are these muted blues and very soft greens. This was a glaze that was invented by their chemist, Paul Cox, in 1910. Newcomb had pretty much 4 distinct styles. This piece is one of the earlier pieces that I pulled out to show you. It's from circa 1900, right at the turn of the century. As I said earlier, Newcomb started in 1894. The earlier pieces, they were still kind of figuring out what their style was going to be. So you have a lot more diversity in the really early pieces. But a great way to recognize an early Newcomb is that they're underpainted. You can't totally tell from the video, but this surface is completely flat. What the artist would do was paint with pigment onto a hardened piece of ceramics, and then it would be glazed with a clear gloss over that. 1902 to 1910, Newcomb was making this style of vase. Recognizable in that the lines are carved. We call this an incised vessel. The design repeats several times around the vessel and is very graphic in characteristic. You can see that the lines draw out the design, make them really pop, and if you run your hand on the surface, it has texture. This piece is made in 1920, but is a good example of the matte style that they were making from 1910 to 1940. You can see it's not shiny like the other ones are. It's pretty smooth in terms of the reflection. This piece is sculpted as well. When the potters would get a thick piece of clay. All of this would be carved away to make a raised texture. This is the tree and moon design, but you can see it's distinct. There's a little moon, and that shows up in a lot of the Newcomb pieces from this time period. Another key to recognize the difference between this work and the other ones is this is no longer a repeating graphic pattern. It's actually a landscape. This last piece is an example of Newcomb Gild. So in 1942, Newcomb rebranded their pottery and renamed themselves the Newcomb Gild. They made very modern pieces and very abstract. So we've lost the very specific patterns of trees and flowers, but what we have is actually an abstraction of still a natural element. So this piece is called rainware, and it's to represent water droplets and the ripple effect that rain would have on a body of water. Newcomb pottery is generally pretty distinct in that they stamped all of their pieces with their logo. So when we look at the bottom of the vessel, you can see pretty distinctly there is an N inside of a circle. That's Newcomb's seal, and almost every piece of Newcomb pottery has that marking on it. You'll see there's a bunch of other markings on this piece, and I can go through them quickly. This mark here, RBK, is the artist's signature. We know that there were about 900 women that worked at Newcomb throughout its existence, and they filtered throughout, but we have record of all of the different artists, and with this mark we're able to identify who the artist is. So I know from this RBK that this is Roberta Kennan. This mark here is also pretty distinct. It is a registration number, and because Newcomb was very conscious that they were making an enterprise, a commercial enterprise, they numbered each piece that ever came out of the factory. What I can do is take this date and compare it to a logbook that we have that matches up the letter code with a year. This AQ tells me that this piece was made in 1905. There's some other markings that are a little harder to see, but we have very subtly here a J and an M, and those two letters are conjoined. So JM stands for Joseph Meyer, who was the potter. He was the one that would have physically thrown the piece.
And that is that for this edition of Art Rocks. But remember, art lover, you can always watch episodes of the show at lpb.org/artrocks. And if that's not enough for you, Country Roads magazine is a great resource for enriching your cultural life with art, cuisine, escapes and events all across the state. So until next week, I'm James Fox Smith, and thank you for watching.